Well, good evening. Um, yeah, so this is a new thing that we're doing. Um, we mentioned it at the end of yesterday's stream. We mentioned it on Friday's stream. Um, you may be familiar with the World Cup Weekly podcast that recently started that I'm involved in. Well, that was before I was involved in that, I was due to start this other podcast, which had to keep getting delayed by about a month. Where I uh, and our guest for today, you can see from the name of the stream, uh, we'll be talking about some scripts, some custom scripts, some that are interesting, that do interesting things, some that are really well put together, and some that are, you know, just just things that catch our interest. Is the idea. We're going to have a look at those scripts, and we're going to talk about them. This is going to be our first episode, obviously. So we are going to use this as an excuse just to really talk about the what we're planning on doing, and after that, um, sort of also have a discussion about a script, which is one that our co-host today has has written. It is a World Cup script, so you might have seen it played quite recently on the TPI channel. Um, I'm joined by Navean,
Hey.
or as you usually say.
Honk.
So, Navean, tell us. I'm sure that people are quite familiar with you by this point, but why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, how you came to find the game, how you came to get involved in what it was that piqued your interest in making scripts in general, and also why you agreed to do this with me.
Sure. I will answer the last one first. I agreed to do this so that I can continue to harass you everywhere you go.
That checks out.
The real answer to that is that I, of course, am very interested in scripts and script design. And part of what draws me to this game is all of the intricate interactions that the myriad characters in this game cause. And you get to explore that when you're making scripts, right? So a little bit of the backstory of how I got into Clock Tower. Interesting note for the audience: it's actually quite similar to Alejo's own story. So I am subscribed to a YouTube channel called Dicebreaker that talk about tabletop and RPG games and board games. And a couple of years back, they did a playthrough of Blood on the Clock Tower. Now, I initially skipped that video because the audio is really, really bad. But then the pandemic hit, and I was just going through backlogs of various things because I had run out of current media to watch. And I was like, great, let's go ahead and give this a try again. I know the audio is bad, but fuck it, right? And when I watched it, it was actually a pretty bad playthrough. They didn't really have a good understanding of the roles on the scripts, but I could see the potential there, right? I saw what this game was and all of the issues that I had with some other similar social deduction games like Werewolf had, where things were like permanent elimination to me is not all that fun, right? So death not being the end. And I was like, this game is fantastic. That was in February of last year. And then I lurked around for a while. It took me a few months to finally work up the nerve to actually start playing. And I have never looked back since. I don't remember how long it took me to write my first script, but I do remember that the very first script that I wrote was a Teensyville script, and it was really awful. So I feel like I have come a long way in my script writing.
We maybe should have done a script notes on that so you can look back at it and say what you should have done differently.
Oh dear. Maybe someday we can get to that.
Maybe if we're really behind on everything. Um, we're hoping to have a couple of guests, or we will be having a few guests in the future. But that being said, I'm also going to be hopefully looking at one of mine. at a future week. That should be interesting. And obviously, eventually, when we've been doing this for a month or two, we will have a look at Storyteller's Nightmare, I am sure.
That'll be a fun one.
Yeah, for sure. Let's have a look at our script for today. Here it is. It is the horrifying spectacle of public executions. What was your what made you decide to make this script?
So this was the script that I made after the Boom Dandy got released. So this was for the Boom Dandy competition, and it won it, surprisingly. I say surprisingly because I never expect to win anything. But yep, it won. I was very excited. We played it. I got to be the demon, and it ended up being a really rough game, unfortunately.
What happened in that game?
Well, I had a lunatic. That lunatic was Ed. Ed thought he was a Zombool. I was a leech. So we acted on very, very different nights. The first 2 nights, I believe, Ed did not wake, and I decided, well, it's Ed. He probably knows he's a lunatic, but I can at least obscure for the moment what demon type it is for now. And I chose to sync my kills. And then Ed chooses my Boom Dandy. And I went, no, I'm not killing my Boom Dandy. And I also went, this is great because the very first time I get to kill, I'm going to deviate off of Ed's choice. It's going to make my Boom Dandy look suspicious. We'll get to execute them. It'll be fantastic. So I kill the Savant. Well, it turns out the Savant was supposed to be monk protected. And the monk was my leech host. So after sinking 2 kills after the first kill I make, it turns out to be literally the worst possible first person for me to kill outside of my host myself, because my host just gets executed and I died.
That sounds like it was a game.
It
I suppose,
was.
I suppose those things happen, right?
They can, yeah. Leech can be a little bit of a swingy demon in that sense, but it's also just a demon that I really enjoy.
Yeah. While we're talking about games of the script, before we talk about the script itself, you and I had an interesting game with this script once.
We sure did.
Uh,
It was the first time outside of one Legion game, that doesn't count because it's Legion's, the first time that you and I were ever evil together, Alejo.
yes, it was. I am aware of that. Actually, looking at this script, no, we'll come back to that. We'll come back to talking about the script. Yeah, that was a game that was not streamed, unfortunately.
Yes, it also was not. It wasn't recorded in any way.
It was not, so it is lost to time.
It lives only in our hearts.
It does indeed. I was in that game. I was the devil's advocate, and you were the leech.
I was a leech again. Yeah,
you were the leech again. How many times have you played this script? Like actually played in it?
That is a good question.
Have you ever not been the leech in the script?
That is also a good question. I think
yeah.
When I have played it.
Yeah. I guess it's just a leechy script for you. But yes, I was the DA in this game. I remember this game, so such a weird game. I was DA, you were leech, and I decided that I would claim leech for the entire game. Making it clear that I was actually claiming sailor. But
in your Emperor Palpatine voice too at the start of the game, anyway.
Oh, I'm quite sure sorry. So I picked myself on the first night, got myself executed. So everyone was like, "Okay, that's got to be the sailor or the leech, right?"
Right.
Then, but there was an actual sailor in play. So they were like, "No, you're not the sailor. You must just be the leech." I'm like, "Okay, well, you can execute me again if you like." But the thing is, you decided at this point that you would kill my other neighbor, right? Did you know what they were?
I didn't.
You didn't. You killed the Klutz.
Yep. I had heard that they were going around claiming to be the Boom Dandy to people, and I was like, yeah, I was like, this is a person making an incredibly suspicious claim, like on purpose, I'm gonna kill that.
For sure. You killed the Klutz. Um,
Yes.
and the Klutz, in their infinite wisdom, decided to pick me because I was playing, presumably because I was playing too obvious to be an actual evil player. Or maybe they just wanted the
Hmm.
game to be over and wanted to try again. We'll
I
never
mean,
know.
maybe they just thought that it was like the same strategy, right? Like, oh, I'm claiming the boom dandies because I don't want to die and I'm a good character. Maybe Alejo's claiming Leech for the same reason.
Right, for sure. Oh no, we need to back up a little bit because we didn't actually know we were on the same team because there was a magician in play. Fortunately, the other minion was a Mazephiles who offered you the word. You,
Right, which means that we did actually know we were on the same team and who the magician was immediately.
yeah, um, yeah, you killed the
Thank you,
Klutz.
Nez.
You killed the Klutz. But the sailor had decided to drink with the Klutz, and the storyteller made the Klutz drunk. So the Klutz picking me had
Mhm.
absolutely no effect, and we executed the sailor that day.
Who also
So
didn't die.
who also didn't die because the Klutz was drunk. Um, at this point, I was deciding that I would be claiming to have picked the leech host as my, sailor drunk person for the entire game because they were the cult leader,
Hmm.
and I think they had
Yes.
at least one vote that absolutely should have passed, right?
Quite probably, yeah.
Yeah,
They woke up on day 2 and were just like, I think I'm the leech host. You know how leech hosts, they just feel it,
just no.
Like they feel it wriggling around and
It's
they're
just
like,
no in their
gotta get
bones.
this out. They do. It's so frustrating. We had to spend the entire rest of the game. So they woke up on day 2. This was an 8-day game, just so everybody gets an idea of how long we had to spend backpedaling, being like, no, 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 we can't execute you yet. Yes, you could be a leech host, but no, no, not yet.
Yeah. Um, so then we executed the sailor, who obviously didn't die, and we went to sleep and killed someone. Then we woke up the next day, and I think we executed you, didn't we? After that,
We did. I was bluffing as fool, and I was in a double claim with I believe it was my neighbor to my other side. You were my neighbor to my left, and the neighbor to my right.
was yeah.
I was in a double claim of fool with. Fool, of course, was the leech bluff that I got as a demon. And I knew that, of course, he couldn't be the fool as a result. So we executed me. I'm the leech. I don't die. I
Everyone
pretend
thinks
like
everyone thinks I'm probably the leech at this point, despite the fact that I was
the
Klutz
leech or the
picked.
sailor, even though, yeah, like a lot of people were definitely
Yeah,
building worlds where you're just the sailor there because you've been klutz picked.
but there's almost certainly a leech and a sailor between me and the sailor, right? So you
Right.
dying pretty much confirms you.
Mm-hmm.
So the next day, we decide that we're going to execute the other full claim, which is actually the seamstress.
Right. We were setting them up as a possible minion.
Right. Um, so yeah, we set up the seamstress. We execute the seamstress. But I figured that town might decide they wanted to execute the double claim, so I protected them. No execution. Um, Next day rolls around, we execute them again, just to see if the DA protected.
Mm-hmm. We
Um,
finally do our first actual double tap on
we
all of these no deaths.
we do, but the information that they had given out is incredibly unlikely to be true from town's perspective, or quite unlikely to be true from town's perspective, because I think it pointed to you being evil, and people just didn't believe that, or
Yeah, it
possibly,
was. I think it was
possibly,
me and the klutz that they had checked.
yeah, possibly. So everyone was like, okay, well, you're probably the drunk then. So there must be.
Yeah, it's like you're either a minion or you're the drunk.
I think that meant that there would have had to have been a godfather in the game. So the kill that night was assigned to, or was said it could be a godfather. Um,
Yes, you helpfully pointed out when we executed Kale there that if he was the drunk and there was a godfather, there being a kill could have just come from that, and it meant that mechanically we still had no idea if the demon was actually just a zombie.
yep. The next day, we decided that we would go back and execute the sailor again, who,
Who survived again?
yeah, having picked me. I was drunk that day, but that meant the sailor didn't die. Um, was that day 5?
Okay, let's see. So day 1 was you, then the sailor, then me, then the the seamstress, and then the seamstress again, and then the sailor. So that was day
That was
6.
day 6. Day 7, we finally managed to get another player killed, the evil lunatic.
Yes, I
Because
had my Mezephiles turn the lunatic because when I got told on night 1 who my lunatic had hosted, I didn't even think about the fact of like, oh yeah, they're going to figure out they're the lunatic and then they're probably going to get their host killed just to be sure that like I did, the actual demon didn't follow. I didn't think about that. So I just hosted the same person. I was like, yeah, I was kind of thinking about maybe hosting that person too. Let's just go with it. And after I spoke with my Mezephiles, they had initially planned on turning the magician, and I was like, no, 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 you got to hit the lunatic, dude. Like I did this, I messed up. Please turn the lunatic so they don't just hand in our leech host to everybody. So yep, we turned the lunatic, got him on our side. We filled him in on day 2 about what was going on and that we did indeed have the same host. And yeah, we managed to get the lunatic executed on day 7.
at this point, I think there were 2 living good players, including the leech host who was begging to be killed.
Mm-hmm.
Or was that the only one? Either way, you then killed someone else, and we went down to final 3, in which obviously the leech host was protected. You, me, and
Yep.
the leech host. So we
Yep.
had an 8-day game.
Oh yeah, I had to kill my Mezephiles who was
Yeah, you
bluffing
did.
as chambermaid and had 7 nights of chambermaid information to make up.
Yes, you did. No, 6 nights because they died that night.
Yeah. 6 nights.
I think. I don't know.
No,
Whatever.
7
Six,
because it was
6 or
going
7.
into day 8.
But yeah, you're right. Yeah, 7 nights. So then you killed the Mezephiles and the leech host was protected. So we had an 8-day
Yep.
game with 2 executions, or 2 successful executions. Johan Mullane asks, what's the most days you've had in a game? That was certainly the most days I've had in a game where there were, like, there wasn't BMR, let's put it that way. So in a
Yeah,
2 minion
same.
game, I think I might have played longer 3 minion BMR games, but I'm not sure I
I
have.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. If I have played any games that were more days, it would have come from BMR.
How
And
long
it
was
probably wouldn't have been too much longer because, again, like most of our executions failed. So we were getting 1 kill at a time.
right?
And that was a full 12-player game. So
Right.
it took us 8 days to get down to a final 3 with all of those executions not going through. So BMR is probably the most that I've ever played is probably similar to that.
How long was the worst ever game of BMR that Ben Burns decided to set up that I think you were playing in?
Oh, that wasn't very long at all.
It wasn't long. Okay.
No.
I know that he put all of he made it a Zomball Mastermind EA game, but that didn't help.
No, it wasn't Mastermind, it was Assassin DA.
How was it? Okay. Chris for Fun says there was a 14-day BMR stream where Ben Bones was a Final Four living player about a year and a half ago. That's a little before either of our time. But yeah, that sounds
Mhm.
horrible, but
It
also
sure
weirdly
does.
fun.
I don't know about that, but sure.
All right, let's. Oh yeah, one other recent game that this script saw was of course the um,
Well, it saw
World
2
Cup.
games in the
Well,
World Cup. Yep.
2 games, including a re-rack, not including a re-rack in the World Cup game, where it's there was a day 1 or a day 2 game over followed by like a day 3 game over. I think it wasn't the script's finest showing. I don't think.
Indeed, it was not. It was a bit disappointing, not gonna lie.
Well, let's talk about why this script maybe has given us such good games and why it may have given us less good games. We'll talk about the strengths and the flaws of scripters as we see them. The first thing that we're going to say though is like you mentioned that this was for the Boom Dandy script contest.
Mhm.
Talk us through your process in building this script. That's something that we don't really talk about much. Like, what was
Yeah,
the
sure.
first thing that you decided to do? Your assignment was make a script with a Boom Dandy.
Right.
Talk us through from there.
So the Boom Dandy obviously has it makes people think about what they're doing during that execution phase, right? There's a lot of paranoia of, if anybody is, say, volunteering to die, why are they doing that? What is their motivation here? And of course, in some of these BMR roles and things like sailor or fool, you have roles that kind of maybe, you have to execute them to prove themselves. And you've got like a DA who's also maybe going to want that. You have a godfather who's incentivized to try to get outsiders executed so that they can get an extra kill. A Zambul wants something to happen, probably. That's why I put some of the roles in here that can save from executions, so that the Zambul can see things happening, or rather not happening. So I really kind of, started from that position of what are some interesting things that interact with execution in different ways, and let's incorporate those into the script. And then, from there it kind of stemmed out into like Vortox, for example. Not everybody likes this tension, and I totally respect that for people who don't. But I personally am a huge fan of that tension that's created by roles that town doesn't want to execute, things like Boom Dandy, but town has to execute because there's a Vortox on this script, and so they can't just choose to skip. And I think from there it started, after I got sort of like, here are some interesting things that can interact with executions. I just sort of filled in like, okay, well, we're missing maybe some information roles. So what do I think could be useful here? And then I came up with the longest and worst title I think I've ever come up with. And it's so bad that it's good.
I can tell you it is not the longest title you've ever come up with.
What else did I come up with?
At
the time, anyway, it was certainly the longest.
Okay. Yeah. So the Vortox and the Boom Dandy obviously are an interesting combination of characters, because they put pressure. They put that pressure on the Boom Dandy, sorry, on the town to execute people who may want to be executed, right? And there are characters. Yes. There are characters that will or might want to be executed. You've got the chef, who won't mind. You've got the sailor and the monk. Sorry, not the monk. The sailor and the fool who might want to prove themselves.
You got a seamstress who might want to give themselves up to a cannibal.
Right. The tinker might want the storyteller to take them as a threat off the board. The klutz might want to pick early. There's options, right? If someone's ability isn't working, if they're the drunk, then they might think they're a host and want to be got off the board early. I think that's obviously one of the principal things to do, right? As when you're looking to put together a script. But you've not only got that stick, the Vortox, that needs to push an execution. You've also got the cannibal, who isn't getting any information if you don't execute. So even if you have some certain information, like the savant gets the statement, "You are the savant," you still want to execute, right?
Right. Yeah.
You've also got one of the minions can be, in the Mazephiles, and to a lesser extent the DA, can be a little bit open in the way that they play. Like there's reasons to execute evil players.
Yep.
Have you ever seen a Boom Dandy explode on the script? Because I don't know that I have.
I don't believe that I have, which is a little sad. Maybe we need to play this a little more often until we can at least get a Boom Dandy exploding.
We did almost see one in game 2 last week.
Yeah, it did come very close.
We did. So looking through the script, are there any interactions that you didn't really think about, but that you're actually really happy with? Like just things which you didn't go, I'll put that character on because it works really nicely with that character, but more things that are just like, oh, that character's on and that character's on. Oh, that's nice.
Good question. It's probably not that surprising to hear that I do have a tendency to think quite deeply about the interactions of scripts as I am making them. I sit on scripts for a long time. It was not uncommon for me during the script competitions to start my script immediately and then not submit my script for the competition until literally the last day. And that's how long it would take me. I would sit there and I would, partially build a script, and I would have like maybe 3/4 or more of a script done for the entire week. But I would just sit on it and think about it and tweak it and change things throughout the course. So probably there aren't any here that I am particularly shocked as being like better than I thought they would be. Although I will say there are definitely some that are things that I believe I need to rethink and revise.
Let's talk about revisions. Has the script been through any revisions?
Not as of yet.
Okay. You was talking about how you have a long script building process. Were there any?
Mm-hmm.
Was there anything that you were intending to put on the script, like in its early drafts, that you eventually took out that you
Uh,
remember?
Probably. However, I don't generally save like different drafts of my script, right? Like I will save the work in progress as I'm making it, but I always rewrite over the former version. So I can tell you with certainty there were probably roles that were on here that got taken off and rethought, but I cannot tell you what those were.
Okay. Um, you mentioned that there are a few things that you would like to change. What
Yeah.
do you want to dig into that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So, as we saw on Thursday, probably one of the biggest negative interactions is the Oracle with the Zomboul. That's not really a particularly fun interaction, and I really need to think about which one I would like to stay on the script and what to replace it with. Something else that I have been thinking about is you'll notice that there is, of course, a Vigor Mortis on the script, and with a Boom Dandy, that is not the best combo. I do think that the Vigor works with all three of the other minions. That does include the Mezephiles. Some people think it doesn't work great there, but actually, a Vigor killed Mezephiles can literally just wait to turn a player evil until quite late in the game, which can be incredibly powerful. If you have enough evil living on, say, a final four, you can go to a player and say, "Hey, say this word, you'll turn evil. We'll go to sleep. You'll turn evil, and then evil just you get to just win with evil the next day, right?" Like they're afforded that opportunity a lot more with a Vigor, so I'm okay with that. But it doesn't work that great with Boom Dandy, which is part of why I have the Vigor Vortox Zomboul combo altogether. Because with both Vortox and Zomboul, there's a somewhat incentive with Vortox, depending on if people think anything else needs to get executed. But definitely an incentive with Zomboul to double tap dead players, especially dead evil players. However, it is a bit of a tenuous interaction to sort of be like, well, Vigor can work with this because they'll have a Boom Dandy who still has an ability that they'll double tap, which is hilarious, by the way. I think that this is a super fun and funny situation where a dead Boom Dandy who died in the night still has their ability and gets double tapped and then kills everybody. I think that is such a funny thought. But I also think that it is not all that likely to actually happen. A Vortox or a Vigor would have to be sinking kills in order to make it look like a Zomboul. And then you have to convince people that this is a self-killing Zomboul in order to get people to go for it. And I'm not actually sure that building part of the script around that sort of singular, less likely to happen interaction is the best idea. So if Oracle Zomboul don't really work, then maybe I just need to take Zomboul out. Although it does fit on this script, as we found out, because if I had been a Zomboul instead of a Leech that one game, it would have been real fun.
For sure. There's a couple of characters on here that the Zomboul plays quite nicely with, and there's a couple of characters that I feel like the Zomboul can sometimes need that it doesn't necessarily have. So
Mm-hmm.
we'll start with the first one. Characters that the Zomboul does pair quite nicely with. Obviously, you've got the Tinker to cause extra deaths, and the Godfathers cause extra deaths, so they can kind of cover the Zomball a little bit. The other one is the Chambermaid, because if the
Right.
demon isn't a Zomball, if there isn't a Zomball on the script, then if somebody didn't wake, like if you can prove that somebody didn't wake, and it's not like a Leviathan game or something like that, then you can
Yeah.
be relatively certain that that person is not the demon, right?
Yes, although I do think that, Chambermaid with a Vortox on a script does also help make it more interesting with demons that aren't the Zomball.
That's fair. But I think that with the Zomball in particular and its low kill rate, and there's some quite strong information in this town, I think there's a fairly solid chance in a Zomball game it's going to be hard to make it look like a Vortox game, particularly considering the lack of poison in the evil team
Yeah, absolutely.
and the
I agree.
minions in particular. Right, so that is one of the positive interactions. I think the Chambermaid and the Zomball work really well together. But there's a couple of characters that I think also work quite well with the Zomball that this script doesn't have. Namely the Minstrel, which is possibly the most likely character in all of Blood on the Clocktower to explain a no-death night, particularly after someone has been executed.
Right.
So, do you think there's any space for a Minstrel?
Is there space? Possibly. I mean, if I'm taking Oracle off, if I leave Zomball on, then I take Oracle off, and I could potentially replace Oracle with Minstrel.
Well, the problem with the
Yeah.
Minstrel, of course, is it has a
Although I
really
will say,
unfortunate
yeah,
interaction with the Boon Dandy.
with the boom dandy, which was sort of like the point of the script, right? It
Right.
feels really bad to me to be like, the point of the script was the boom dandy and messing around with execution related things, and let's put on a role that completely nullifies this ability entirely. It would feel
Sure.
really bad if evil finally manages to get their boom dandy executed only to have nothing happened because a minstrel procs immediately.
And the other character that I think works really well with the Zomball is the Mastermind. Just because, again, it offers that explanation for
Yes.
no kill after an execution, but also it's the only way. I think it's the only way in all of Blood on the Clocktower, unless I'm missing something, aside from the Zomball, to have two players alive in Final Three. Is that right?
I think that is correct. Yeah.
So they kind of complement each other naturally. Although, of course, you very rarely see that mattering. But I just think it's a nice
Right.
combo.
Yeah, I can definitely agree with that. Again, you make this excellent point about with Mastermind on a script, you now have two reasons for there to be a world of we have two players alive, and then town has to decide between, well, do we just not execute? Do we just double tap that last player that we killed, or is this a Zombul that is hiding somewhere else? And if we just double tap the last player, we're gonna lose.
Right.
So having multiple reasons for that is always more interesting than there just being hard confirmed this is a Zombul game.
Right. Yeah. The next question, then, having thought about that one, is this game only has one character which is going to learn meaningful information right at the top of the game, and even then, it's kind of only a puzzle piece kind character, and that is the chef,
Right.
which knows how many pairs of evil players there are. The chambermaid also obviously starts with some information, and the savant
Mm-hmm.
can learn some, and the seamstress can, of course, choose
Right.
to. So there's little bits of information that can be gathered on that first day, first night period. But right at the top of the game, there's only a couple of characters that have any meaningful information on a Vortox script.
Right.
So that they have to execute, which obviously is the theme of the script. Do you think there's any scope to add some more information right at the start of the game? Also, just to give you time to think about that, chat. If you have any questions, do feel free to put them in chat. I will read them out. So yeah, that's my question to you.
Mm, I'm not sure, really. I might consider swapping Chef out, to be honest. So Chef really works better, in my opinion, when you have roles that can mess with the Chef number, right? A recluse that can potentially be procced off, a spy that can cause a number to also be wrong. Misregistration works really well with Chef there. I mean, I do have a drunk, but as you pointed out, there's little poisoning on the evil team side. To be fair, again, there's a Vortox that just being on the script allows people to put the Chef number into a lot of question unless or until they get that solved. But yeah, there's little on the script that can really be helpful for figuring out if it is Vortox fairly early on, except for maybe if you use Flower Girl that way, or currently Oracle. But again, we were talking about removing Oracle. So it's yeah, I might consider, like, if I remove Oracle, I might consider putting on something else that could possibly get information on night one, or I might consider swapping Chef out for something else, although I'm not sure what at the moment. Also, the
Um,
Chef number, interestingly, can get messed with later on in the game because there is a Mezephiles and there's a cult leader on the script, and um, the Chef gets a number, and then that number may or may not change based off of whether either of those causes a flip.
yeah, I mean the Mezephiles turning somebody on the first day, and then the cannibal chef getting a different number to the chef is quite interesting.
That's true. That is true. Maybe I
Um,
will leave Chef then.
sorry.
Maybe I will leave Chef then.
Yeah, another character which could give some early information and pairs quite well with, I think, the evil team that you've got, particularly the Vortox, and I would argue the Mezephiles, is the Dreamer.
Mm,
Also, I think works quite well with the Drunk because that makes it a
true.
little bit more bluffable for the evil team.
True. Yeah. I think that is a good suggestion. I will definitely consider that. So that instead of Oracle.
Sure. The next character that I have a little question about is the Sage. Now, I don't have any problems with it. It doesn't have any negative interactions that I can see, um, but it also doesn't have that much else. I suppose it's got the Godfather um, to like they know if they've been killed by the Godfather, right? Um,
Right. Yeah.
but that aside, it seems like a fairly neutral character for the balance of the script. I know that you like the
Mhm.
Sage, but was there anything that you were looking at that I might have missed?
To be honest, I can't remember. But unless there is a reason not to have it on the script, I generally enjoy putting probably about one character on scripts that are sort of like, this is something evil doesn't want to kill in the night. So that would be, Raven Keeper, Sage, Farmer type roles. Which one I usually decide on is sometimes it's decided by what else is on the script. I think possibly I went with Sage because I think Sage pairs interestingly with Vortox, perhaps more interestingly than Ravenkeeper does. And Farmer obviously isn't affected by Vortox at all. So I probably was thinking I want something that evil doesn't want to kill, but also something that some of these demons can sort of mess with a little bit. If you have a vigor who's killed a minion next to a sage, you can kill that sage a lot more safely now too, right? So
Yeah,
there's a
for sure.
couple of demons I think that sort of synergize with the sage specifically. Shockingly, they came from the same base script. Who'd have thought, right?
I know, right? It's almost like the base three scripts are really well balanced and have
Wow.
fun internal interactions. Um, a couple of characters that jump out to me as being characters that the evil team don't necessarily want to kill are the Fool and the Magician.
Yeah, so that's part of why the magician is in there, is because I think it's a bit of a fun interaction. You can also have the situation that we had in our game where Mezephiles walks up to one of them and is like, "Hey, do you want to be evil?" So
Right.
that's sort of a way to for evil to maybe address the magician situation. Similarly, a vigor mortis can kill without kind of worrying about whether that's actually a minion or not. So I think that magician has a little bit of interesting play in here. There are some reasons they might want to kill it and some reasons they might not want to kill it. I think hitting a fool is I think it's up in the air as to whether a demon wants to do that or not. Like, obviously, it does suck to sort of miss a night of death, but also you might want to just to get that fool's ability a bit out of the way, right? There's also a monk on the script, so it is hard to say, and a Zambul. So it is hard to say to, for the good team as to why there was no death in the night. And if you've hit a fool once and then they go to maybe try to say prove themselves during the day and then they just die, yeah, they might be able to solve like, well, I got hit in the night by a demon, so of course I've already lost my first life. But it could also make them look like the drunk. You could try to push that viewpoint as well, or it could look like there is a vigor killed minion nearby. So I think that, again, with Fool, there are some reasons that Evil might want to hit that in the night. But I do agree that these are targets that are less likely to occur. But they're also not things outright that Evil's like, oh no, that was like the worst hit possible.
Yeah. Let's talk about the monk. It has great interactions with, or potentially great interactions with 3 of these 4 demons. But the 4th one can just turn a fairly sad demon into a very sad demon.
Right.
Do you want to talk about like what you were thinking with the monk?
Okay, so hear me out. I have yet to see this, which means that I personally am going to need to manufacture this myself in one of my scripts that allows for it. Monk in a Vortox game, choosing information roles causes that information to become unvortoxed, because that is what the monk's ability is. It's you are safe from the demon, which includes all negative effects, which includes Vortox false information clause. There's a Mezephiles on this script. I desperately need to see an evil monk in a Vortox game. I need this in my life. I want to see an evil monk going around and lying to and saying to somebody, I protected you, your information is unvortoxed, when that is not what they have done.
That is like a reverse poisoner.
Isn't it like, it's
A
fantastic. I
healthier.
love it. I want it
Can
so bad.
we call it the healthier? Soberer.
So certainly, like, Monk in a Vortox game is already somewhat an interesting interaction. I think that Monk is also interesting with Leech and Vigor Mortis because it protects temporarily from the poisons caused by those demons as well. So if you can sort of track down where you think somebody might be being poisoned, you can protect them and see if their information changes at all, and see if that can help you find some things. Or you can try to get turned by a Mezephiles
You
and take
certainly
some
can.
damage.
I mean, if as a storyteller you want that to happen, then surely the bounty hunter is the obvious choice.
Oh, I definitely have that on some scripts.
Let's talk about that then. Mezephiles, along with the cult leader on a script, which of course we saw both of in play. That's a risk for a storyteller, right?
It is, yes.
10-player game, that's half town evil.
Yeah. So I am of the belief that it is okay to have custom scripts that require a little bit more forethought going into the setup. Honestly, even the base scripts require that, right? Like with Trouble Brewing, you can pretty much just full randomize and you'll probably get a fine and balanced game out of it. But with S&B and BMR especially, I think, you really want to, you can start by hitting full random if you'd like, but I wouldn't recommend just always going with that deal out. You might want to tweak some things off of that. And I think that that can be true for custom scripts as well. There's nothing wrong with having a script that requires just a little bit of forethought and you don't just randomly grab tokens out of the bag and throw them in. And so that means, in my opinion, I think some people like to limit it to 1. And that's, I think, perfectly fair and valid. I personally believe that a script can support up to 2 alignment changers on the same script. as long as the storyteller is aware of how that interaction could occur negatively and limits some of it somewhat, right? Puts a little bit of thought into, okay, well, if I'm putting a Mezephiles in, maybe I don't put in a cult leader this time. The reason some people don't like that, having more than one is because if you have more than one, that can become metaable, right? So if town believes that there's a cult leader in play, they're less likely to believe that there's a Mezephiles as a result. I don't think that's the worst thing in the world. And certainly with the cult leader's ability to flip-flop, it's also not quite as bad as two roles that will hard always turn somebody. Like, say, a Mezephiles and a Fangu, for example, is just permanently +2. But things like Goon or Cult Leader can kind of flip-flop. But it is something to be aware of when you are looking at a script and when you're making a setup in a script. If there are more than one alignment changers, how is that going to affect the game? And should you actually put those both in play? The answer is probably not most of the time. But then, of course, I ended up hosting our cult leader, so our cult leader was good the entire game.
That one was fine. That didn't matter. I mean, you can also create a chain reaction there, though, with the Mezephiles and the cult leader. You turn a neighbor of the cult leader and kill the other neighbor. Suddenly, oh hey, that cult leader's between two evils now.
Right. Yeah,
that
you
gives you a
can
little bit
sort
more
of.
flexibility in that the storyteller can't.
It does, yeah. And that is, again, that's something that you need to keep in mind. Is like when you put a cult leader and a Mezephiles in play, you don't get to pick where those seats go. Like wherever those tokens are dealt or where they are dealt, you might have a cult leader who starts the game evil because they're sat between two evil players and there's nothing you can do about it. And then, maybe if you realize like that is unbalanced and now there's 5 evils in the game, there's only so much that you can do about it, right? It's like, well, if one of their neighbors dies, you can flip the cult leader back to good again. And that's about it, right? You have to sort of hope that it's not going to be too unbalanced. But you could also, you could end up in that situation where if you have, if your starting setup is, say, demon, cult leader, minion, one of those minions is a Mez, they turn the other neighbor of the demon, and now you have, evil player, demon, cult leader, minion. Like that cult leader is just never going to turn, right? Like there's just no way.
Right.
Maybe maybe you get into the final game scenario where you've got both minions dead. Now you can possibly flip the cult leader again. Like it has the potential for some pretty rough setups for the good team. And again, that's something that I think is fine as long as the storyteller can be trusted to have the foresight to see that those kinds of things could happen and make wise choices about what they're actually putting in the bag.
Sure. Similar to the monk, you've got the drunk on the script.
Yes.
The other character that can receive good info in a Vortex game. Is that the primary reason? Have you got any other thoughts behind that? Obviously, the drunk can unexpectedly cause a Godfather kill, as we previously discussed.
Yeah. So, and actually, I sort of sit on the fence with that, right? Because if the drunk causes a Godfather kill, and then town's like, well, the only way this could happen is if an outsider died, and that player's claiming not outsider, then you've now tracked where the drunk is, which is generally really strong for the good team. So it's honestly, drunk Godfather is a questionable interaction, in my opinion. But when making the script, right, one of the things that I do is I look at, great, so where are our sources of misinformation, and does there need to be something else? And usually I try to put in at least one outsider that causes some level of misinformation. There are different ways to cause that in this game, of course, but one of them, and a classic, it's pretty much peak Clock Tower, is the drunk. I do think that the drunk has a very interesting interaction with the Vortex. And in general is just sort of a source of like, here's a potential source of either misinformation or town spending a day executing somebody who is expecting to have an ability and then just suddenly doesn't. And that sort of making things a little bit more interesting. And then you also have the cannibal who eats the drunk ability, which could be a really interesting interaction, depending on how you as a storyteller want to run that.
Yeah. On the subject of the Godfather killing after the drunk is executed, I think that's particularly an issue on this script, right?
Yeah,
Because the
it is. Yes.
Godfather is the only character that can kill an extra player, with the only
Right.
exception being the Tinker. So if a character other
Right.
than the Tinker dies, you know that it's not a Godfather. Sorry, that it is a Godfather.
Right. Yes.
Do you think
Which
the
is
script could?
definitely a potential issue.
Yeah. Do you think the script could stand for more killing in the night, or do you think it could stand for other outside manipulation? Maybe you got a drunk on the script, right? So maybe a Baron would work.
Yep, I could consider replacing Godfather with Baron, to be honest. I believe Godfather is on there in part for the outsider manipulation. I do actually really like Godfather Vigor Mortis as a pairing on customs, because the outsider -1 with the Godfather's +1, I think is interesting thing for town to try to kind of solve for. And then you put a drunk on there, and it's just even more, obscured. But honestly, a Baron might work, and it might work a little bit better for that exact reason of Godfather Drunk not working all that great.
Yeah,
I do kind of want to keep Drunk because, again, that interaction with Vortox is particularly interesting to me.
sure. Um, yeah. Just continuing our look through the characters. The Klutz. Do you have any particular thoughts behind why the Klutz is on here? It seems to be another character, a bit like I mentioned with the Sage, that doesn't have any obvious interactions. But again, I might be missing something.
Well, the obvious interaction is if a klutz wants to get themselves executed, right?
Right.
Something interesting happens when
Oh,
a
of
klutz
course.
gets executed.
Of course. Okay,
Yep, it
that's
could
fair enough.
potentially just end the game, and it is not all that uncommon for klutzes to try to get themselves executed early when they still have the best options. Like, mathematically speaking, the most good players are going to be alive on day 1, right?
Right.
So, the earlier you get yourself deaded as a klutz, the more likely you are to, if you were to randomly choose to hit a good player. Um, on day 1, you might want to try to find somebody, get a good social read off of them, and if they read good to you, get yourself executed and pick them.
Right. That's always
Although,
a.
I
That's
did that
always.
once on a player. I ended up not getting executed day 1. I got executed because somebody broke madness. So I got myself executed day 2. I chose a player I had a great social read off of on day 1. Guess who got Zephyles turned in the night? Which this
Amazing.
script also offers. If you are a klutz and you get a good social read off somebody in day 1 and you don't get yourself executed and you do it the next day instead, you might want to go talk with them again before you decide to choose
Right.
them. Yeah.
I mean that will be the most hilarious way to end a game, right? The klutz getting executed, and then the cannibal picking the exact same player and losing.
Oh my god, I would love that.
um,
That's hilarious.
yeah, I think we've got most of the characters on the script. The only one that we've not really touched on at all is the flower girl. But
Mhm.
I don't know. There's a whole lot to say. It's a Vortox checker, obviously.
Right.
Um, yeah, so
And
I
it's a
think
powerful one too, right?
sure.
But I
Um,
also think Flower Girl doesn't synergize all that great with Zomboul for the same reason that most things don't synergize with Zomboul don't
yeah,
synergize well with it, which is that in a Zomboul game, that Flower Girl is just going to be getting quite a lot of information,
right.
significantly more than they would otherwise. And it's probably not all that difficult to tell a Vortox game from a Zomboul game, to be honest, at least not on the script.
Yeah, no, for sure. Oh, hey, everyone, we executed somebody on the first day. I mean, that's basically what happened in game 2, right? Except with the Oracle.
Yeah.
We executed
Hmm.
somebody on day 1. Everybody voted, got a no, but other people getting correct info. Uh-oh.
Yep.
I suppose the other option then is um, the obvious alternative to the flower girl. I feel is the fortune teller. They both do quite a similar thing, right? But obviously, some storytellers run that differently with the Vortex to others. There's not really a particularly clear answer to that.
Hmm.
I'm aware that you have your way of running it, and so do most storytellers, I'm sure. Yeah. The other option, I suppose, which would kind of work with the Zombool, again, going to that script, is Exorcist.
Yeah, an exorcist could work. It sort of covers the same niche, but in a different way, you know?
Yeah,
Flower Girl is about finding the demon. Well, so is The Exorcist.
right. I think Flower Girl, Fortune Teller, and Exorcist fill quite a similar niche in very different ways in their respective
Right.
scripts.
Yeah, exactly. And
Um,
honestly, that's when I design scripts, that's sort of something that I think about when I choose characters is what niche of the script is this filling? What is this role's sort of job, right? You have things like minion finders, you have things like demon finders, you have things like confirming your fellow good players. You know, think about like that overall, what is this role doing? And do I need multiple of that type of thing in the script, right? Like, I don't really think that you need, you know, multiple minion finders or multiple demon finders necessarily. You can have some that are a bit more generalist, you know, getting that sort of spread of like townsfolk abilities that do these various things without a whole bunch of crossover into just the one area.
right. I think we've spoken about every character on the script now. So I suppose, unless there's anything you want to say on individual interactions.
Um, Nothing that I can think of in particular.
Okay. Then let's talk about, just real briefly, because this is supposed to be about an hour and we're approaching that, but that's fine. Let's talk about real quick what you do. Let's say that you're a good player on the script, in any given role. Like, what roles do you want to see as a player on the script, and how do you want to go about, like, anything special to this script that you might want to try? Any interesting plays that you can make as a good player on the script?
Well, for me personally, I love roles that are trying to die in the night.
Right.
So Sage for me is always an exciting thing. I sometimes will play outsiders that way as well. That I will try to draw a kill to me as a tinker. I think that's a perfectly fine thing to do. As a klutz, maybe that's a little bit more nerve wracking because again, you have a big choice to make. As a drunk, you won't know, and as a lunatic, you possibly won't know. If you're, I guess, if you're, but you're the demon knows who you are. So if you're a lunatic, sort of bluffing as something powerful doesn't matter anyway. So it's a little bit less feasible with the outsiders here, but you know, I would personally really enjoy pulling a sage and then trying to pull off a chambermaid bluff. Or I would like to be a chambermaid, quite frankly. Chambermaid is a very powerful role in its home script and in basically any script that you put it in. Very, very strong. Uh, I probably would hope that there's a Mezephiles in play, but that's just me. I think the most fun way to be evil for me personally is to be turned by either a bounty hunter or a Mezephiles. The alignment changing aspect of it is just it's so fun to me. I love alignment changing. As a result, I also think cult leader could be fun, but of course, cult leader can kind of flip flop back and forth.
All right. How about as an evil player? You pull a demon token, you pull a minion token. What are you hoping to pull? And are there any, like, for any of these characters, are there anything that you might think, oh, I think I'll do that with this script? Look at those characters that are on it.
Yeah, I think certainly if you're a Mezephiles, you're going to be keeping your ear out for any of the more powerful roles. You know, you definitely like flipping a chambermaid or a flower girl or an oracle. Um, you know, flipping a sage potentially. You know, there's a lot of things here that could do a lot of damage if you manage to flip it. And you know, obviously the one extra evil is very helpful as well. If you're a Zombool, I think you probably want to see a DA to maybe help support you a little bit. And of course, there's a Boom Dandy. That's again what the script was sort of written about. Is you know, that was the sort of base for this script. Is we've got a Boom Dandy here. What
Right.
else can we do with this?
Okay.
So yeah.
let's say then you pull the boom dandy. What are you going to do to get executed? Do you want to get executed?
Most of the time, yes. There's definitely a point in games where you maybe don't want to get executed because it might actually just help the good team sort of solve some worlds as the kills happen. But especially early in the game, Boom Dandy is the strongest earliest in the game when there is less information and less time for people to spread that information and get social reads off of each other. So, as a Boom Dandy, what you want to do is there's definitely different tactics that you can take. But certainly anything that is volunteering to die on a script that has a boom dandy on it is going to be possibly not executed as a result because of boom dandy paranoia. So there's different strategies you can employ, but probably my favorite one as a boom dandy is I want to look suspicious enough that people want to execute me as being an evil player, but not so suspicious that I'm just putting neon flashers pointing, saying boom dandy pointing directly at me. And that can be a really fine balance to try to make.
I think it's quite clear what I would have done if I pulled the boom dandy token in that game. And it would have been
Claim
exactly what I
bleach.
did do. I would have claimed bleach.
Yes, claim bleach. Yep.
um, yeah. An interesting one for me on the scripts that you can do, and it's not something I've ever seen, is Mez turning the leech host.
Yes, Mez turning the leech host.
I've
Strong, very
I've
strong.
I've never seen that happen because obviously the strength of the leech is that it causes good players to campaign for their own execution. So
Right.
you prove that it's a leech game. All of the good players will be campaigning for their own executions, apart from this one who just knows that they're the one who should be doing. Suddenly they don't want to anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Particularly if you were then to combine that with a particularly strong role, like maybe if you were to put it on the Dreamer, who can prove themselves to be getting good information, right?
Right. Yes. Yeah, there are definitely some roles that I think Mezes really, really want to turn. And there are also some situations where a Mez really, really wants to turn somebody.
Right.
Like in our game, where the Mez came up to me and was like, well, you're either the magician or the demon, I'm the Mez. And I, of course, am a guaranteed Mez turner. I will absolutely always say the word, and I will not out you as a Mezephiles. I mean, if you get executed incidentally, which I, having said the word, will not vote on, but if you get executed anyway, then yeah, sure, of course I'll come out with it because I'm not turning evil now. But I will always try to turn evil first. But so they came up to me and they said that, and I was like, great, I need you to turn the lunatic because I did what could possibly be a poor play that results in us losing. So
I had the saddest game once as a Mezephiles, where I outed a little bit too much information, and
oh no.
then got preached.
Oh no. Oh no.
Yep.
Oh, that is so sad.
And then I was just like, yeah, no, I told you the truth. What are you going to do with it? And had to try and uh, bluff that I'd intentionally given a wrong word, so everything that I said could not possibly be true.
Oh.
We didn't win that game.
Oh, Leho, I'm so sorry.
What you were saying about the Klutz as well. I once had a fun game of S&V as the barber. It was streamed.
Mm-hmm.
It was a while ago. I don't know if it ever made it to YouTube. But I was the barber, and I decided that I would go for something interesting, get myself executed day one, and see if anybody claimed to have turned or to have changed or anything like that, just to see what the demon would do with that, because they obviously had no way to know that that it was going to happen. They had no time to think about it. The minions had no idea it was going to happen, so I wanted to see if I could catch a minion out.
Mm-hmm.
So I decided I would claim Klutz. Um, so I got executed, claimed Klutz, and pointed at a player, just like a player who was just reading socially good to me, which is what I would have done if I had been the Klutz, right?
Right.
I picked the good twin. They hadn't doubted that they were the good twin. I randomly picked the good twin.
Nice.
It was that was a strange one. And then I spoke to the good twin like 2 days later and said, "Yeah, sorry, I'm not actually the klutz." And the disappointment in her voice.
I can imagine.
Yeah,
Imagine thinking you're the Klutz confirmed good twin, and then you find out, oh no, I'm actually not.
I know. I can't remember who won that game. If anyone remembers, let me know. It was streamed about 2 months ago. I wouldn't expect anyone to. Um, yeah, I think that's everything we've got to talk about here, right? Unless there's something you want to say.
Mm-hmm. No, I think we've covered it pretty thoroughly.
All right. In that case, thank you all for joining us. I did not realize until about 2 minutes after I pressed the start streaming button that Missing Pieces are streaming today. Because this is not a normal stream for them. This is a World Cup stream.
Yes.
So we're going to raid into that. So I suppose that's one good thing that's come out of it, right?
Yes, and they are still in game one of their 2-game World Cups. So if you were joining us here, thank you very much, and hopefully we will get into these still fairly early on into one of those games.
Yeah, we will be back here with this again in 2 weeks. The idea was that we would take the weeks, we would be streaming the weeks that Day One Whispers aren't streaming, just because it's one of the very few time slots in the evening European time left, quite frankly. But yeah, that's when we'll be going. We'll be going every other week on Mondays. In the future, we'll hopefully have some guests and talk about their scripts a bit more. I don't know if we'll have a guest in 2 weeks. We'll try and find one. If we don't, we'll be talking about my script Remembrance Week. Live Sarah, I am glad that you have enjoyed this discussion. If anybody watching wants us to tear your script to shreds, do get in touch. We are absolutely looking for guests. Navean will be here with me for all of them for the foreseeable future. So Navean is very, very good at script building. So you are
Well,
going to
thank
be,
you.
of course, you are going to have your script is going to be destroyed by only the finest of minds, I'm sure. Don't let them know I said that. Let me server deafen them.
I didn't hear it.
No, I'm server deafening you. Where's the? Oh, I'm in my messages. God damn it. Okay, never mind. Can you
Can't
server
even
deafen
find it.
yourself for me, please, for just like 10
Yeah,
seconds?
sure, you got it.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, we'll be back in a week. Sorry, in 2 weeks. We will be back tomorrow, where we will be running this script that we have just been talking about, the horrifying spectacle of public executions, along with another script, which is called "Oh Fuck, Is It Mine?" Because that game that we were talking about earlier, where we played this script, Skills was the storyteller. Navean, you had no idea that this was your script, and by like day 2, when nobody was dying to executions, someone was like, "Oh, this is a great script, Navean. Well done." And Navean just responded with, "Oh fuck, is this mine?"
Yep. So I know my scripts by their titles, but I have approximately 30 scripts that I have written that are all actually viably playable scripts. I also have about a half a dozen others that are completely joke scripts. I don't know which scripts are mine just by looking at them. I have too many. So the script tool doesn't display titles when you open up like the roles list, right? So yep, I had no idea it was mine, and somebody was asking like, oh, great script, like who wrote this? And Skills was like, I don't know, Navy, and you tell us. I was just like, well, I said exactly that. Oh fuck, is it mine?
And it was. And when I say we will be storytelling this tomorrow, I mean Navean and I will be storytelling this tomorrow.
Yes.
And then we will be storytelling. Oh fuck, is it mine? We will also be playing another game tomorrow, which is not Blood on the Clock Tower, which I know about, and a few other people know about, and Navian, you do not know about.
Ooh.
You will be the one playing that game, and only you.
Okay then.
It's going to be fun, I hope.
I'm sure it will.
You'll find out tomorrow, I am sure. Uh,
I'm looking forward to it.
and with that being said, we will now call that a day there. Thank you all so much for joining us. We will see you tomorrow. We will throw over to Missing Pieces. We will see you in a few days on Friday when we will be playing. Do you remember what it was called? Dakota knows what we're playing.
I do not remember what it was
Ask her.
called.
Yeah, no, I don't either. And then we will be back again on Sunday night hopefully we'll be back again on Sunday night. I will not be here on Sunday night, but I will be streaming on Sunday night because I'm going to be out of town this weekend, unfortunately. Hopefully we can find I can find somebody to stream for me. But if not, then we'll take a week off. It's fine. We will be back again after that next Tuesday. So that this stream will not be happening next week, just to be absolutely clear. But we will be here tomorrow at 8 p.m. my time, which is European time, 7 p.m. British Summer Time, or 2 p.m. Eastern Time. Don't know what that is Australian time. But, it's an hour earlier than the Thursday TPI stream. Before we go, Navean, do you have anything you want to plug?
Well, I can just go over where you will find me. So tonight I will be hosting with Bardic on his stream, Bardic Puppy, on Twitch. That will be at 8 p.m. Eastern. You can also find me on Fridays on the Connecticut Blood on the Clock Tower and on Sundays on Jamie B0TC.
Awesome.
And of course, here on every other Monday from now on.
And also every Friday.
And yes, generally on Fridays as well.
And most Tuesdays.
And most Tuesdays as a player, yes.
And also TPI many Thursdays.
Yes. Are we reaching goose oversaturation yet?
Occasionally, Sundays.
Yes.
Some other streams occasionally, I'm sure.
This is just to harass you, Alejo.
I am very, very well aware of that.
It is not at all because I absolutely adore this game. It is definitely just to harass you.
Everywhere I look, there's just goose droppings.
I leave little feathers for you everywhere I go as a gift.
I've tried to decorate my house with little sprigs of mint, but they're just ripped to shreds by the time I get downstairs every morning. Just replaced with a single feather.
Yeah, that's my signature.
All right. Enjoy the games on Missing Pieces. I'm sure we'll both be in chat watching with you. See you there. Good night. See you tomorrow.
Bye.